to the third day of our conference. And just to say a big thank you for being here with us today. Even though I myself felt this morning, should I go to the conference venue or maybe perhaps go to a nearby beach? And then I thought, no, Dina, you're the chair. You have to go.
It was because there was no nearby beach.
Yeah, but probably Salomi's reminding me that in Nicosia there's no nearby beach. So I didn't have too much choice. Anyway, thank you very much for being here with us today. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Salomi Papadima-Sophocleous for so many reasons. First of all, because Salomi has done so much work for the conference, being a member of the organizing committee, of the academic committee, delivering a workshop, and preparing her keynote speech as well. So Salomi, thank you in advance. And I'm going to introduce Salomi now, my regular routine, my ritual. So please bear with me because she does deserve this introduction. So to those of you who don't know, Salomi Papadima-Sophocleous is an assistant professor and language center director at the Cyprus University of Technology. She has formal background, a BA, a grad certificate in education, a diploma in education, a postgraduate diploma in an MEd, an MLEd, a D professor, and so on and so forth. Have I covered everything? And 30 years of experience in teaching as well, in both secondary and tertiary education, research and publications in teaching English, French, and Greek as a foreign second language, computer-assisted language learning, curriculum design, development and evaluation, printed and online testing, language program administration, and quality assurance in Australia and Cyprus. She's a member of the Language Curriculum Accreditation Committee, of various language curriculum accreditation committees, and the Victorian Certificate of Education, where she's been an examiner for so many years, and now she's a member of the Curricular Review Committee for Languages and the Examination Council for the review and improvement of language testing practices in Cyprus, and also responsible for the Language Center for the Language Testing Services at the Cyprus University of Technology. Her publications include printed and electronic L2 learning and testing materials. Let me just refer to Neptune, because Neptune, the new English placement test, online test, was designed by Salomi when she used to work for the University of Nicosia, and it's Salomi's brainchild, for whom she's very proud. So I'm now giving the floor to Salomi. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. And thank you all very much for being so courageous to be here at 9:30 this morning. Dear colleagues, it is with grief and pleasure that I am participating in this conference dedicated to the memory of my friend, Dr. Pavlos Pavlou. Pavlos was one of those who conceived the idea of this conference, so we as the organizing committee and as his friends are very happy to be able to see his dream come true. Thank you for making it true with your participation as well. Now, when I started thinking about this presentation, some of my own experience of language testing came to mind. I don't really remember when I first started learning English, my first second language. All I remember is that I was at primary school age. I learned English from my mother's English customers in her novelties shop. I also remember that one of them was a primary school teacher and gave me a couple of Ladybird readers for a gift. That was my first unofficial but authentic experience of language learning. I guess my speaking and reading skills were put to their first authentic type test through talking to these customers and through reading, I have to say enjoy reading, those Ladybird books. My second language testing experience was of a different nature. I was in the 5th year of high school when studying Greek, English, French, and Italian. I had to take English, French, and Italian exams. During those days, we were never given the opportunity to practice speaking the languages we learned in class. So, when I had to take oral exams in those languages that year, I got the shock of my life. I was shocked by listening to my own voice sounding in French and Italian. However, this shocking experience was compensated by another, more pleasant one. I live in Limassol. On his way back from a trip to Paphos, my father found some French tourists on the way. He invited them home. This gave me my very first experience in speaking French in real life with real French people. When the tourists left, my father explained to me why he invited them home. He wanted to offer me an opportunity to speak French with real French people. Well, since he couldn't send me to France, he brought France home. Without realizing it, my father put my French to an authentic type of test. I'm sure many people in this room have similar stories to tell about their language testing experiences, both at school, as part of pedagogy, as well as in real life, as an authentic experience. This conference, as we all know, is about language testing and assessment around the globe, achievements and experiences. Workshop presenters, plenary speakers, and other presenters so far told us some other stories. These stories cover different aspects of assessment and testing in different parts of the world. As part of your acquaintance with Cyprus, and in the context of the conference theme, I'm going to share with you a different language-related test I have recently experienced. That of finding out about language testing in Cyprus, where it has been, where it is now, and where it is going. And believe me, that wasn't a very easy test. And I will explain. As Spolsky says, the field of language testing has not risen Venus-like out of the ways of applied linguistics sometime after the 1960s. And of course, the same applies for language testing in Cyprus. So, to be able to find out where we have been, where we are now, and where we are going in language testing in the Republic of Cyprus, the presentation attempts to position it in the broader language testing context, to offer a first overview of government language testing practices in the Republic of Cyprus only of the last 50 years, to offer a first review of current government language testing practices and some suggestions for improvement. I have to say that these 50 years coincide with two major events. One is the beginning of modern language testing history, and the other one is the proclamation of the Republic of Cyprus after a long period of Turkish and British ruling. As we all know, in very general terms, the evolution of language teaching and testing had three main stages: the grammar translation, the structural, and the communicative. During the time when continuous advancements were occurring in language assessment and testing, Cyprus was going through turbulent historic, political, social, and other changes which affected its education and, as a consequence, its assessment and testing system. To position the history of Cyprus in the broader history of testing, I'm giving a brief overview of the history of testing as following Spolsky's description. So he starts from 2,000 years ago in China through the medieval years up to the present day. And we have seen changes such as changes in purpose, content, types of administration. And for example, in content, we have changes. We started with composition and translation, comprehension with multiple choice, to communicative competence. I will use again the division of the historic periods of Spolsky to indicate where exactly the story of testing in Cyprus fits. The first one, as we all probably know, is the traditional or pre-scientific before the 1950s. And the characteristics are that testing did not rely on any linguistic theory, validity and reliability were taken for granted, and the test components included mainly dictation, translation, and so on. The second one, psychometric structuralist, between the 50s and the 60s. Here we've got the entry of the psychometrist working together with structural linguist working together, and then we've got as content, grammar, vocabulary, reading, listening, and so on. And the last one, comparing the three periods, the last one offers a lot of activity in many different domains. It's the era of more interactive community tests and learning. And its major landmarks are Euler's unitary competence hypothesis, Canal and Swain's three components, and then later on with Canal adding the discourse, Bachmann, and then we have other areas which have been researched by researchers. And in this particular era, we have a lot of research being done. Authenticity, alternative assessment, we have new technologies entering the arena, assessment for academic or specific purposes, control of education system by different bodies, social and political functions of language testing, and of course we have different agencies dealing with testing. We have academic, ministries, and of course the commercial ones. To the research, I would like to add also what has been mentioned by other presenters in this forum, the mediation and also the multi-dialect lingual literacy and model that was mentioned. More than that, during this last period, we have other developments. We can see the language, the development of language level frameworks and scales, tests of high scale, which have become sort of international, different organizations dealing with testing, associations, conferences, journals, language testing resources, testing courses, encyclopedia. There's so much activity being done around testing in this from 1960s to date. There was great progress. However, when we look back, we can see that, as Sgian has said in 1990, there is a big back between the testing specialists and the classroom teachers who struggle to create tests on an everyday basis. Now, let's see what has happened in Cyprus. During the different historic periods of Cyprus, there has been presence of different languages and cultures. Greek being the prominent since ancient times, Turkish because of Turkish rule, short presence of French and Italian and the different forms of their remainders to date, English because of the latest colonial era and the current use of English in various domains in Cyprus, Assyrians, Persians, Arabs, you name them. They've passed from this island. And there was a lot of activity and use of these languages on an everyday basis for commerce, due to the ports, and also on administrative high level. And I'll give you an example of the dragoman in Turkish times. The dragoman, I wouldn't say the translator, I would use the word mediator. It was very important to do his job properly so that messages from the Greek-speaking community were efficiently transferred, mediated to the Turkish rulers. So all these languages were always tested in real life, not in a monolingual, but in a multilingual, authentic way, as it has already been suggested. It should happen by other speakers during the conference.